everybody. I'm going to do a throwing demo today. I don't think you can see me. Hello. Trying to zoom in on the pot. I have 4 pounds of clay here. It's Goldstone. And then I have another 4 pounds, and I'm going to do 2 videos throwing 2 different shapes of large 4-pound bowls. So we'll see how big they can get. So before I start, I'm going to rock it, get the bottom a bit curved so I can avoid trapping air down there. And I'm going to throw it down as close to center as possible, starting up here and going straight down. Give it a couple extra whacks and start to spin. So as I'm centering, my knees are braced, my elbows are braced, my hands are touching most of the time. I'm using the heel of my hand, putting pressure on the side there at about 7 or 8 o'clock, and pushing down on top with the side of my hand, kind of making a fist and getting a little bit more on this edge, trying to press down and forward. A little more speed. Quite a wobble there. I'm going to cone it up. So going on either side. So before I cone up, I want to make sure my high point is in the very center. So pushing in 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, raising up, starting to get a hollow, so I'm going to pause there and press in the top, making sure this is again the high point. I don't want to create a volcano that can trap air. Okay, continue coning up. I'm reaching my hands to touch each other, but you can see this and here are where I'm really pressing. So I'll try to do that one more time. Relax and let go, nice and slow. Now when I bring this down, my left hand is not quite all the way around. It's at about 11 o'clock. And my right hand is going to come down, not straight down, but cupping that tip in the palm of my hand and pushing down and forward as if I'm pressing my 2 palms of my hands together. Bracing my left elbow to really stabilize. And if you feel a wobble, you can pause and recenter. Seem to have a loose back pin. That only seems to matter when I'm really putting a lot of force on it. All right, so that feels pretty well centered. Centering large clays, not a lot different than smaller ones, except you just need to move your hands around a little more and make sure you're compressing the clay from lots of different angles. And I'm going to bring this down a little bit more for the base of my bowl. So pressing on top, I don't want to create a mushroom, so gradually bringing it down, a little bit at the center, and then out on the corner. Doing most of the work with my right hand, but constantly feeling, putting pressure where I need it with my left hand. Get the top nice and flat before I open it. So it's already centered. What I'm doing now is defining what my footprint is going to be before I open it. So I can't change this footprint once I start to shape the clay. So this, let me do a quick measurement, is about 6.5 inches, roughly. I didn't notice I didn't stop my wheel to do that. I don't like to stop my wheel once I get going. Okay, so I've defined my outside foot, so I'm going to open up the center, stabilize with my left hand over here, not really pushing, but feeling, and stabilizing my right hand as I go in with one finger, making sure, starting out nice and slow, making sure my finger's not moving. If my finger's spinning like that, I'm not truly in the center. And I want to make sure I'm going down into the center at a bit of an angle. If you go straight in, you tend to create a very thin opening and a bit of suction with your finger. So I like to go in at a little bit of an angle, not a lot, and pressing down. And on bigger pieces, I like to leave a thicker bottom. So my bottom, you can always use your pin tool to measure, but if you can imagine sort of the top of my finger is at the bottom of the opening. So what I'm leaving on the bottom is about the thickness of my finger. So I'm going to compress that little rim. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. And that should do it. So my next step is to pull this open. Now I want to be careful that I don't create just a high big ring here on the outside of the opening that could easily tear off. So as I open, if that starts to happen, this clay's a little on the stiff side, so that may happen, and I'll stop and compress that. So I'm going to go back to my same position, supporting with my left hand, opening with my right, pulling this pretty much straight across, trying to keep the same depth all the way across. I'm going to stop and compress this back in so it stays part of the clay. And then I'll go back. Once this gets bigger, I can get a few more fingers in there. I'm still really only touching with this one finger though. The others are there to help push and stabilize. And I'm not pushing in with my left hand. I don't want to make this smaller. I want to just stabilize, and then as I bring this out, it will hit my left hand and go up, so it won't get wider just at the top. I've already defined this outside part, and I don't want to push that clay out any further than that. So I'll continue opening here. Relax and let go. Get a little more water. Now for a bowl, I want to maintain that nice curvature at the inside bottom. So this part right here is still a little on the thick side compared to up here. There's not a lot of difference, but I don't want to pull this over too thin and create a vertical wall. I want it to be curved. And grab my sponge. So once I have it open, I'm going to come in here with my sponge, clean up the lines from my finger. I know you guys can't see in here. I'll have to get a better setup and have two cameras going, or you know, bribe somebody to come in and take a live video sometime. But I'm just going back and forth. Even if your bottom is pretty nice after opening, it's a good idea to do this with the sponge. I'm just pressing back and forth a little bit. Not putting on so much pressure that the bottom's getting really thin, but compressing it so that the clay is nice and smooth and compressed without any ridges. And now I can move over to my raising position. Get some of the slip off my hands. Whoops, raising position's over here. Which is, I guess, going to be a little hard for you guys to see, but it's mostly review anyway. So I'm over on the right-hand side here at about 4 o'clock. I'm going to slow my wheel down just a touch as I start to raise. And as I raise, my hands will stay touching. My inside finger leads, my outside finger follows. Inside fingers pushing against the wall and creating a little ridge, which you should be able to see come up over here. And my outside finger is under that ridge, pushing it up. A little bit of water there. Sort of squeezing. Not worrying, whoops, I just lost quite a bit of the top there. This bowl's going to go a little bit taller than wide. Got a little bit of glob there from that piece that tore off. Just going to compress that for a moment. And then do my next raise. Focusing more on just getting it vertical and not so much the final shape. I don't want it to flare out a lot, so I'm putting more pressure with my outside hand, my right hand, trying to keep that side vertical. I can always bring it out a little more later. It's really hard to bring it in. All right, so my second raise, same inside fingers leading. Get to the top, relax and let go, very controlled. Get some of the water from the inside. Slow down a little bit more now. So my next one, I'm going to start bringing it out a little bit more. Trying not to let that rim flare out too much. Relax and let go. Utilitarian pieces that are going to get used a lot. I like to leave my rim fairly solid, not too skinny, not too delicate. And yeah, and then I think I have one more raise in there. I'm going to bring it out a little bit more rounded as I do this last raise. More shaping than raising at this point, but still thinning a little bit. Just hold there for a second. I had a little wobble. Wanted to just hold. So I think that's as thin as I want to go. Then I can use a rib to shape it a little bit more if I want. I'm going to clean the water up from the inside here. Pretty much have it finished and clean before I shape it, so I don't need to mess with it. Don't have my really big rib here, but I'll use this little one just to get rid of some of the throwing rings on the inside, give it a bit more of a curved shape. I'm going to support on the outside with my sponge as I come in here with my rib, reaching up with my right hand so my hands are touching, just giving that inside a little bit more of a curve so it has a nice continuous curve to the bottom. And then working my way up, counter pressure on the outside with my sponge, not really squeezing hard. I'm not trying to thin it. It'll thin a little bit as I stretch it, but I'm not, doing a raise and moving the clay up the wall anymore. So I'm liking that shape. Just cleaning up that edge, making sure it's a really nice curved line into the center. And then my rim here, I could continue to do it with my rib. I could just do it with my finger. I do have a little chamois piece here, and I don't like the way it's hooking in on the inside there, so I am going to change the shape of the rim a little bit. So my chamois, this one's really skinny. I like to fold it in half so it's not coming across that the edge of the chamois, and not putting a lot of downward pressure on it, but just kind of letting it drag between there and give the top a really nice curve this way, and just pulling it out a touch so it's not hooking in too much at the top. Relax and let go. And if you wanted more of a decorative rim on here, you could take this and lean it out a little bit. Gotta be careful because at some point it'll just go all the way down, so you need to be careful how much you pull that out. But I'm going to leave mine vertical here, more like a mixing bowl, serving bowl. And then before I finish, I'm going to clean up the bottom here, just with my sponge, get rid of all this slurry on my bat, and then trim off some of that excess clay at the bottom. My wheel's going quite a bit slower now. Started out fast, centering quite fast, and slowed it down a little bit as I progressed through all the steps. So getting rid of all that goopy stuff, and then I'm going to take my wooden knife, and normally I would do this over here, but I'm going to try to come around here so you guys can see better. So I want to cut off that extra clay. I don't want to cut too far under my pot, but I want to just slice this off. So like a knife here, I'm just going to go in kind of slow, get all the way down to the bat, and lean it out away from the pot a little bit. And I'm going to take my knife and go under this ring. And sometimes it comes off really nice and other times it doesn't. So I've sliced it from the bottom, and then again I'm going to come in and slice it from the top and then cut it off. And I have to come back here to do this. And pull that off. Sometimes it comes off better than others. The cleaner I leave the foot today, the easier it will be to trim it later. So it's worth it to take the extra time. And clean it up. But like I said, you don't want to undercut it too much, especially if you have quite a curve here that's holding up the wall. You don't want to cut too much off. There, that's good. Come back with my sponge and just clean up any goopy stuff I did. And running the wooden knife under there also creates a nice guide for the wire to go under. So I can wire this off. Now again, I create like an extra finger at the end of my hand here. So I don't want to wrap this wire around my skin. It wraps around the wood and I can pull it taut without hurting my skin. And I'll slide this underneath. I like to do that with my wheel spinning. A lot of people stop their wheel first and then slice it off. Either is fine. And then I will remove this, and then I'm going to do a same amount of clay, wider and flatter. Let's see, so my top rim here is 9 1/4, a little over 9 1/4 inches. And height, I have just over 4.5 inches. Okay.